Hi, welcome to Coach Mel's Crochet Corner. So today I'm coming to you with 5 hacks for crocheting using bobby pins. So before we start, let's talk about making sure that you get the right bobby pins, because there is a wrong bobby pin that you do not want. So you'll see I have a couple of different bobby pins here. This is the one that you do not want, okay? It doesn't have this nice opening at the end, so it's definitely trickier to get that open and to put it into your stitch. You'll see how easy it is with the other ones as we start working with them. So do not get those. Put those aside. These are fine. This one's a little bit big, pretty long, could get in your way, so I don't recommend that, but it does have the opening, which is an important part. This one's okay too. It has the opening, it's a little bit smaller, but these are my favorite. So they have the little ridges, they have the nice opening here. They're not super long, probably, I don't know, 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches. And you can get a whole bunch of them for really cheap. I got these at Ocean State Job Lot for only $1.99, and there's 60 of them. I just bought 2 packages of them the other day. Why so many? You'll see in a moment. So start out by making sure that you have the right bobby pins. There's some that are shorter too. I don't really like the short ones. This is my favorite one right here. All right, so let's start with our hacks. So first one, and so I've been crocheting for about 12 years now. I just learned about using bobby pins about a year ago. Wish that I had known it, because it would have saved a lot of time and effort for certain things. And one of the first ones is that counting that lovely chain. So especially when you're starting an Afghan and you have a very long chain, if you lose count, you have to undo it, redo it. So on this one, let's just do a few. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I'm gonna mark it, and watch how easy it is. You just take that and you just stick it right in through there, and then keep going and mark 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Grab that bobby pin, throw it into that stitch, and keep going. So you can keep going with this, obviously. I'm marking every 10. If you're doing an Afghan really long, maybe you want to do every 25, every 50, whatever. But just a quick way to mark that, especially if you're not great at counting your chains, if you're just starting out. And there you go, you just count your bobby pins and you know how far you are. All right, that's hack number 1. Hack number 2, marking, either during your crocheting or when you're done. So there's a lot of markers out there. These are some that I've tried. This one is plastic, and then it kind of loops like those good old little baby diaper pins. That's what it reminds me of, okay? They're okay. They're a little tricky sometimes to get in, because you gotta hold them apart to get them around that stitch. Okay, not my favorite. Then there's these. They're kind of like a rubbery material. You gotta get them undone, get them through the loop. Now, through a loop is fine. Through a stitch, yeah, not so easy to get it in there through that stitch. It works, yes, but you'll see how much easier it is with the bobby pin in just a second. So put those aside. At the end of a row, so a lot of people, especially when they're first starting out, have a lot of trouble knowing where the end of their row is. So you can mark the end of your row. I'm gonna do my last 2 single crochets here. And now, that being my last one, I'm gonna mark that stitch, so I go under, just like I would if I was crocheting into it, and I leave that there. I'm gonna do my chain 1 and turn, and then I can either go right back into that first one, which I like to do, and once I do that, I'm now gonna move that up, see how easy it is to move it, to this first stitch. So I know when I come back that that's my last stitch that I'm going to go into. I don't use that chain unless I have to, unless the pattern says that I have to, because I find it very difficult. But you could also, if you needed to, you could mark with your bobby pin in that chain if your directions call for you to go all the way to that chain. So another thing to do with the bobby pins is to remember or to know where you need to do something. So maybe starting, stopping. So if it says, you know, go in so many and you're gonna do maybe a chain in between. So I'm just marking these randomly because I'm not following a pattern or anything, just showing you. So I'm putting it into those stitches, and then I'm gonna continue across until I get to those, and let's say that my pattern says that I need to chain for those 5 stitches in between. Well, I know that my last stitch is going to go right where that bobby pin is. You can leave it in there, it'll come out later, and then I'm going to do my chain. What do I have there? 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 2, 3, 4, and then I need to pick up with doing my single crochets again. Just an example. There's, you know, many different things that you might do where you need to indicate at a certain stitch, maybe you need to do something different. I had done a shawl pattern where on one side of it you were always doing 2, so you could put 2 in that last stitch to remind you that, hey, when you get down to that end, there needs to be 2 single crochets in that. It was something where we were adding when we got to there, okay? So the other thing to do here, I just finished that off, okay, is to know that if you needed to just know a certain number of stitches, again, like our chain, you could mark in a certain area just to know how many stitches you are at. Okay, so now also working in the round is a great place to use the bobby pins to know your start and your end. So I started this here, and let's say that I now need to do two single crochets around, but start with a chain 1. So I'm going to do that chain 1, and I'm going to mark it, because you'll see in a moment as you work your way around, it's difficult to see this. Now, some patterns are going to tell you to connect into the chain. Some patterns are going to tell you to connect in your first single crochet. Having that indicator there lets me know what I'm going into. If I need to go into the stitch, then I'm going to make sure that I'm not going to go where the bobby pin is because I marked my chain. So I'm just quickly going around. I'm putting 2 single crochets in each one to make my way around. You'll see, and this lets you know when you get to the end of your round. Okay, all right, so now I'm back at the beginning, and oh, here's my chain, so I don't have another stitch there. So if I need to go into the chain, I would go in right where the bobby pin is. If my instructions told me to do my slip stitch to the stitch, then I would go over the bobby pin and I would come up here to this first stitch, get the whole thing, and then do my slip stitch there. So working in the round, great way to indicate. Then when I started again and I did my chain 1 for the next round, I'm going to pop that bobby pin out and put it into that chain 1. So really useful, really easy to use. All right, really quick one. So you put your work aside and you're throwing it into your bag or whatever. Great way to just hold on to your place. Slip that in there so that it doesn't unravel. So that's a really quick one, okay? Next one, so might not be used, I'm gonna leave that there actually, so might not be used super often, but if you ever do something where you have an applique, so this is going to get applied onto this square, you need to be able to hold it in place while you're doing your stitching, okay? So you'd get it to where you want it, and then just take your bobby pin and go right through the stitches and hold it in place there, okay? Just push it right through where I want each of them to be. I would, you know, take my time and make sure I was being careful that it was all laid out just where I wanted it. Push it through that stitch, Okay, they come through the back, and now you have that applique held down so that you can then make your way around and know that it's not going to shift, because how mad would you be if at the end of it you realize that the whole thing moved? Oh, look at that, I didn't hit a stitch. Okay, so make sure that when you go through that applique, you are going through a stitch on that applique. All right. Okay. You can also use this, I don't have 2 squares here with me today, but you can also use this to hold squares together. So if you're making something that has several squares and now you need to hold them together to stitch them, I'll just fold this one. You can get everything lined up, make sure that your stitches are nice and even, and then you can use a few bobby pins just to keep that held in place again, so that as you're working, it's not slipping out of place. So as you're doing whatever stitch, your whip stitch, your mattress stitch, whatever you're doing, you're keeping everything held together and lined up so that you know that you're getting stitch for stitch. Okay. A couple of other things, not actually on the working of the crocheting, but what about when you're done and you have a little bit of yarn left over, so you have that ball of yarn left over, and you go to, you know, wrap it up and put it in containers, drawers, wherever you keep them. You know, this never stays. It always unravels. It looks messy. So grab one of your bobby pins, go ahead and stick it right into there. Now leave a little bit of a tail so that you could pull it up. If you have a really tough ball, it might take a little bit to push it in, but I always leave a little tail sticking up so that I can pull it up when I'm ready to start using it and yank that pin out. Okay, so just stick that right in there. If you have a small ball, you could still do it. Just take that bobby pin and just bring it across a few of the threads. That'll hold a small ball as well. All right, and last but not least, you have that skein where you didn't use that much, but you have all this extra here, and you want to keep it nice and neat so that it doesn't get tangled. I always like to wrap it around the label, and then when you finish up, grab that bobby pin and just put it right onto that skein so that it holds that yarn there for you. All right, I got one more bonus for you. I told you I was going to do 5, and I've got 6. So you have your magazine that you just got. This is actually an old one, August 2019. But you have your magazine that you got, and you found a pattern that you want. And at the end of the pattern, it says continued on page 59. Okay, so you go to 59. And here's the pattern, and it says that you've got to go back to repeat rows 2 and rows 9. So you got to flip back and forth while you're doing this. So if you put the bobby pin up at the top and hold that section in between, you can easily get back and forth to the parts of the pattern that you need. And another thing on magazines that you could do too, when you first get it and you're flipping through and you say, ooh, I like that, I think I want to go back and do that at some point, go ahead and throw that bobby pin in there and leave it in your magazine, put your magazine away, and then the next time you go and look at your magazine, you're going to say, oh, there was something here that I wanted, and then you're going to open up right to something that you had selected. So that's it. Those are my tips and tricks using these little fellers. The other thing about these that I didn't mention earlier is, you know, these you get 20 for probably $4 or $5.99. This one I did mention before, I got 60 of them for $1.99. So very cost effective. Oh, and the reason that I bought so many, because I went into my my storage with all of my balls of yarn, and I really started taking care of getting them nice and neat so that they were not unwinding all over the place. So I hope this has been helpful to you, and I look forward to seeing you back here for some more crochet tips, hints, patterns, all that good stuff. Thanks for joining me on Coach Mel's Crochet Corner.